So joining me to talk about the media revolution here on the Thom Hartmann Program, which is part of the media revolution, is another leader in the media revolution and a friend of mine, Richard R.J. Eskow, the host of the Zero Hour. Richard, thanks for joining me.
Hey, man, always a pleasure. Good to talk to you.
So I was talking about how the lie that happens, that is told by Pete Peterson and his ilk, that is a con, right? To convince people they're going to get nothing and therefore they'll accept less than they're owed. But I spend a lot of time talking about the larger part of the media's propaganda, which is the stories that they don't tell and how powerful the stories that they don't tell are. And one of the main ones is the story of global wealth and income inequality, of this global oligarchy who are hoovering up all of the resources around the globe. And they're doing it, and we're creating wealth and income inequality that we've almost never seen these levels before. It's leading to political instability all over the world and here at home. And the propaganda is basically to not tell that story, and definitely don't tell the story that we can do something about it, right? Make it seem like, oh, no, this is just naturally what happens. But in fact, it's really easy. We can do lots of things about it. We can have tax and spend policies that directly address this. We can tax the global oligarchs, who are the huge winners of our current system. We can tax them, and we can spend that money on things that would benefit working families in America, big infrastructure programs, for example. And these aren't rocket scientists' ideas, right? Rocket science ideas. These are really simple ones. So that's where we are talking right now.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think that's exactly right. And I think we can also, the other thing we can do that people never think about, we never talk about, is we can stop giving extremely wealthy people tools to make even more wealth with. Perfect example of that is the internet, developed by the United States government, built with taxpayer dollars, with government dollars, and with the intellectual property of people at all income levels, and yet somehow just turned over to private interests for the production of enormous wealth. And we don't even say, you know, maybe there should be tax, maybe this should be done in a balanced way. We venerate people for inventing apps that, frankly, you know, I had a technical background, or they're cute, but they're not world-changing. And we venerate people for manipulating funds on Wall Street when we should be setting policies so that half the corporate profits in this country aren't unproductive wealth that's created just by moving dollars from one box to another. But there are all sorts of ways we don't look at the system because the media isn't looking at it for us. You know, political scientists back in the 80s said the media can't tell you what to think, but it can tell you what to think about. Now, of course, they do both.
So I want to go back to your original show before the Zero Hour. You had, and I already noted that Social Security Works is a sponsor of the Zero Hour. You had a show before the Zero Hour, which I listened to, which I loved, which is why I came to you and said, let's produce this show, the Zero Hour. But it was your introduction to that show, right? That's right. What I loved the most, because it was about how you are highlighting. Here, just tell a little bit about that.
Well, we used to say, for the breakdown was the show, imagine that you were looking at the world, looking at planet Earth from outer space, but you could see the flow of money as if it glowed in the dark, and you could see money moving from one place to another, one continent to another, rising and falling. You would see that this flow of money, this global current, is behind the rise and fall of empires, the turning of elections, the changing of individual lives, culture, all the things. You know, there's an interconnectedness. There's a flow behind it all. So I used to call that spot the flow, if I recall. And thanks for reminding me of it. I haven't thought about it in a long time.
And it's what I really think the media, the corporate media, have their job is to sell widgets. Their jobs is to keep people watching through the commercials, right? I don't think the corporate media lies. I mean, they do sometimes, but they mainly lie about one thing, which is what their job is. They lie that their job is to tell the news or give information out, right? Their job is to sell widgets. Their job is to sell products. And they're really good at that, right? Les Moonves was saying about Trump and why they'd show empty podiums for 30 minutes at a time. You know, Trump may not be good for America, but it's damn good for CBS. That's a guy who knows what his job is. His job is not to tell the truth about Donald Trump. His job is to get money to his corporate owner. And those corporate owners are part of, in a very real sense, that, I mean, if you actually had that power that you described in the flow, you would see these big nodes, and the corporate owners of the media that we consume would be huge nodes in that money flowing around the globe, creating and causing, and as an effect of all of the global turmoil. That's why they don't want to tell that story. They definitely don't want to talk about the fact that this is a manufactured system that we are living in.
And, you know, it wasn't always that way. 50, 60 years ago, when TV first came around, in return for using the public's airwaves, which was understood to be the public's property, the news was something that the networks did as a public service. It was not a profit-making enterprise. When it became a profit-making enterprise, and it wasn't perfect then by any means, but it was a lot better than what we have now. And what we have now, strictly, you are, like they say, if you are not paying for it, you're the product. That when it comes to consuming mainstream news, you are the product. You are not being given information. You are being transacted on behalf of advertisers.
So now let's get into the media revolution, which, you know, your show, the 0 Hour, the Thom Hartmann Program. There's a lot. The Union Edge with Charles Showalter. There's a lot of players in this, and I do want to name some, because what I've been saying, and I have a phone line, and we were talking about this with people, is it's now within our power. We don't need to turn on the TV to find our news anymore, to find the truth. We can find truth tellers like you, like Thom Hartmann, and we can find them on, you know, online. You can watch your show on YouTube, on Facebook. You can find Tom on Free Speech TV. You can find you on radio dials. But we need to not only find the truth tellers, but we need to share the truth tellers. We need to actually, that's part of the media revolution, is everybody taking, you know, I watch Thom Hartmann on Free Speech TV. This is how I do it. I'm going to share that through my social media, through my social network with people around me, so that they can start getting truth from truth tellers and not being the product of the corporate media.
Well, I'm all for that, as you know, and I think that one of the things all the people you named share in common is that we all have a point of view, but we all have a complete dedication to the truth as a value that has value of its own. We will make our point of view known, but it will always be based on telling people the truth and the whole truth.
So what do you think we can do to accelerate the media? So, like, in, I don't know how many days, it's 20 something, 23 days now. Is that right? 23 days. Donald Trump will be inaugurated. That'll usher in 4 or more likely 8 years, if you're being honest. And you know, at least 4 years of Donald Trump being president and everything that comes along with that. At least 2, more likely 4 years of unified Republican rule. There is going to be disastrous policy changes going on. They're coming after Social Security and Medicare as hard as they can, right out the gate. Now more than ever, the media revolution is the key. Now more than ever, people need to know that they can trust the information that they're getting. So when you produce your show, what are your thoughts on how we can make this media revolution grow? And I'll note that you were a writer for Bernie Sanders during his campaign, and you watched the political revolution, really growing, and it was a very organic thing, and it really did spread in a way over social networks, as the corporate media were trying their hardest to ice him out, to do their very powerful propaganda by ignoring.
Yeah, I mean, look, what we saw with Bernie was, the old adage, first they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then you win. Well, we haven't gotten to that part yet, but we got pretty close. What I think we need to do is accelerate that process. First of all, make sure they can't ignore the truth tellers that are out there in politics, like Bernie, like Keith Ellison, like many of the great activists on the local and state and national level. So first of all, we've got to lift up those people. We've got to make sure that they know we're lifting them up and that we're acting in solidarity with them. We've got to highlight the issues and causes that aren't being reported by the mainstream media, whether it's Standing Rock or the assault on Social Security and Medicare. We've got to, or foreign policy questions. We've got to highlight all of the above. I think those of us in the media revolution have got to collaborate with one another. I come on Thom's show a lot. We need to work together as friends and allies in this struggle, and I think we're doing that. And I think we need to counteract. The media is now nothing more than, well, the Republican, Trump said this, and a Democrat said this in response, if they even bother getting a Democratic quote. And I think we need to be that independent, strong, progressive voice that says, no, this is what the truth really is. And I think we need to use all the tools at our disposal, social media, supporting one another, whether it's financially or amplifying each other's message. We've got to do all of the above.
So we're going to go out to a short break in 1 minute and then come back, and I'm hoping you can stick with us and so in the final minute, where can people find your show right now? How would they find the 0 Hour?
Well, to support us, they can go to Patreon. That's patreon.com/the 0 Hour. To get the feed of the show itself, they can go to thisisthezerohour.com.
That's after this break. I want to talk about that Patreon because that's something that you and I worked together on that I think is a really useful thing, because I want to encourage other truth tellers to stand up as well, right? Like I want people to find your show, Thom's show, to share the shows that they have found with their friends and family and networks, but also to become truth tellers and amplify their own voices. And it's very possible right now. So stick with us through this break, Richard, and we'll be right back. You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. I'm Alex Lawson, filling in for Thom. We'll be right back after this break.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Taking more of your calls right after this on the Thom Hartmann Program. Welcome back to the Thom Hartmann Program. Still with us is Richard Eskow. We're going to take one call here before we go back to a quick break. But here, let's see if we can do this in the time we have. Tom from Minnesota, you're on with Richard and I.
Hello, Alex.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. I wanted to talk to you about the Fox Spews channel. That's what I call it.
It's zapped.
And I started out when I would be watching, say, Free Speech TV, and there was a commercial. There's a few commercials. Anyway, I started out to change the channel to watch Fox, and then go back to the networks or whatever I was watching. And it just piqued my interest. So then when there's a hot topic of the day, I would see how Fox handled it as opposed to, say, MSNBC. And ultimately, I've seen every hour in the day of the Fox Spews channel. And it's really important, the last 2 days, how Fox is handling this mess with Israel. And if people would just, if the that sane people would watch what Fox is doing. It explains the election. It explains a lot of things.
Tom,
And I think
Tom, I think you're exactly right about the you watch Fox News and I think Fox News was a sort of obvious propaganda outlet for a while, but it transformed during the Obama era. Especially, it actually became the tail wagging the dog, and it leads the Republican Party and the conservative movement for the most part now. There are fissures in there, but like Fox News is actually disseminating the marching orders. Richard, do you have thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, they also are helping to separate people from any notion of the truth. I mean, long before we had internet fake news, we had Fox fake news. And the fact that that wasn't called out more aggressively by the rest of the media, even when they outright lie, shows that, they're more alike than they are different. And that's why we need an alternative media now.
Exactly. And Fox News really did a lot of the tactics that we now see just all the time, they actually originated with Fox News. You would watch their morning show would set the stage with a false narrative. Sometimes there would be, something called the Cavuto question mark used, where they were just asking the question, is President Obama a secret Muslim who hates America? We're just asking the question, right? That was their tactic. Then these right-wing fever swamp blogs would just strip that question mark right off and spew it out more. But they'd get their original kernel on Fox News or Fox Spews, as Tom likes to call it. Tom, thanks so much for your call. We're going to be taking more of your calls right after this break. You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Richard R.J. Eskow is joining us, and we will be right back after this break. Welcome back to the Thom Hartmann Program. I'm Alex Lawson, filling in for Tom, and I'm joined on the phone by Richard R.J. Eskow, host of the Zero Hour. Richard, we have a few minutes to kind of round out this discussion of the media revolution. You and I have been working at this for a long time now. I don't want to make it seem super easy for people to amplify their voices and get their voices out there. You started years ago writing at the Huffington Post. You were one of the first writers at the Huffington Post. And just tell us a little bit about that process.
Well, I met Arianna Huffington at a blogger party in Los Angeles when she was starting her new blog. Nobody knew how it was going to work out. And about 2 or 3 of us got credit for being the voice. People thought it was going to be a celebrity blog where you could log in and find out what Kirstie Alley or whoever was famous then thought, and it turned out to be a political blog because people were hungry, just as they're hungry now. They were hungry then for the real story of what is going on, and that was originally what the Huffington Post was doing back in 2005. And so
we only have a minute here, so I'm going to zoom you through because what happens is it's the truth telling. Right?
Yes,
it is
absolutely.
your dogged determination to tell the truth. You have your point of view, but it's the truth that actually is what drew people to you and grew your audience to where you are today with your show in 8 markets, and you have millions of listeners who've downloaded it. We're running into the music again, Richard.
All right.
You can find more of the Zero Hour at thisisthezerohour.com. You can also find more at patreon.com/thezerohour. Richard R.J. Eskow, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.